I'm all flustered now. I'm so happy for Catalina. Here, I'll just do this. That didn't help either. Guys, how come it's not? What am I doing wrong, you guys? I want to show it as a slideshow.
Is there a present option?
Yeah, there should be, right?
Try the view on the top bar when you go on full slide.
I'm doing this for now.
Do you have PowerPoint?
It's what?
Do you have PowerPoint?
I do have PowerPoint.
You can just download it as a PowerPoint. On the top right, the down arrow on the top right of.
You guys. Yeah, I hear you. I see you. I see this.
And you can open it as a PowerPoint. I'm pretty sure you can present.
Week 4. And I use this circle. We are kind of coming full circle on some of the things that we've been talking about, and I want to make sure that you understand how. I also like the idea of a circle because we have one of the slides that I don't have here is a circle of like production of scholarly knowledge, dissemination of results, and your part in that. So let's think about where we've come these past 4 weeks. Okay, so we started in week 1 talking about the whole circle of production of scholarly knowledge, trying to help you understand how research at a Research One university is quite different from what you're used to in your timed labs, where by at 2:15 the flame turns blue and you know you've got sodium in it. You started right off the bat reading peer-reviewed literature, and I know that some of you have told me in office hours that you've gone back and reread what you read 3 weeks ago and how much more you can understand of it now. So that's great. We've read both writings by Professor Alon and Luckman, and talking about mentoring and especially implicit and explicit. I'm going to talk a lot more about that. We covered the ideas of how a community of researchers talks about systemic racism, disparities in health access. We looked at Dean Yortzos' memo and talked about thought leadership and the role that research can play in letting somebody express their values, express themselves, either within their own research group or within a community of researchers. So I'm coming back to this today. Week 2, we started doing specific skill building. So that was when you guys rushed through MATLAB. Maybe you also had to do some Excel or Unity, Python tutorials and stuff like that. And you started really meeting as a sub-cohort and building the different skills that you might share within your sub-cohort, and then specific skills and understanding of your own research group. Then we move on to week 3, and we started applying as a full cohort, applying analytical skills. So we met with Professor Wren and we broke into groups. Even if you didn't know anything about machine learning before, just how would you go about questioning how a company like Snapchat might try to keep you hooked. The annotated bibliography that you finished this week, that you started, you didn't finish it you finished it week 4. That's all applying your analytical skills. And then deepening the work that you're doing in your own projects, in your own research group. Okay? And that continues. From here on out, you're really going to be immersed in what you're doing with your research group. But we also started hearing about career pathways in industry. So I was really glad. It's the first time I was able to do that in Shine, so I'm glad that happened. So today we're going to talk about how all of this fits into your shine story and why it's important to have a shine story. And we're using shine because that is what we all share. What you're going to be learning today from me and from Dr. Harold are all about using a story. Okay, it doesn't have to be a shine story, but we all have shine in common. Okay, so back to week one, and you can see that I'm going to return right now to some of these themes because they don't go away. So the next slide I have is, if you've been paying attention on the news, there's been a lot of debate around what the World Health Organization has advised. They've said that contamination of COVID virus through aerosols in closed places they have not said that that's as important as 239 experts have disagreed with them. So here's just look for all the examples that you can see about even in the regular news about how a community of scholars shares their values, how they do thought leadership. All of this stuff that we're talking about is part of our daily lives, and I'm hoping that now you can start to recognize it. Also, returning to the way that African American and scientists of color are reacting to doing thought leadership around recognizing systemic racism in research and in the academy. So next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, there's going to be 2 full-time actions where you could, if you're interested in learning more, you could go to this website and look at how academics, including graduate students, are sharing their thought leadership about systemic racism in STEM research. So that might be something that you're interested in. These things just don't go away. So this is a slide that I used back in week one, where I wanted to have you be thinking about how do professional organizations set the values of their members, and what are those values? So we just saw 2 more examples. I've asked you to read Dean Yortzos's latest memo. So to ground us, I want to go back to the first memo that you read by him in week one. And this is his commitment to engineer a better world. You probably haven't read it for a while, but we used it back then to show how not just a professional organization, but the role of the president of a college, the role of a dean of, well, I guess I should say the president of a university. Carol Folt is the president of University of Southern California. Dean Yortzos is the leader of the Viterbi School of Engineering. He has to set a vision for all of us. And this is going to line up with how do you pick your colleges. One way is that you figure out if their values align with your values. And I'm hoping that through what you're learning in Shine, you're learning how to recognize their values and figuring out how well your values align with theirs. Okay. Back in first week, we also pointed out a part of Dean Yortzos' memo where he's questioning impact. And again, that is one of the values of scientific research, is we're always circling back. Did I have the impact I wanted, that I planned on? I have to reflect on my methods, my results, my discussion, what I think of those results. And one of the things that I personally like so much about Dean Yortzos is that character is as important to him as technological competence. And you will see that as you start thinking about applying to colleges, that as the speakers on the iRobot panel said, that GPA is important. Okay, it's not that it's not important, but what's really important is your character, the values you bring, and what you bring to that college or to that company like iRobot. Like, remember that Erin said that people talked about her welding skills more than her GPA, right? So how can you how can you leverage all of this as you start thinking about summing up what you've learned here in Shine at the end of the 7 weeks, and as you apply to college. So here's the memo I asked you to read for today. I found it to be a real optimistic and uplifting memo. You know, he talked about how he feels certain things, and you can look at the words he uses. I agree on this eagerness, all of these rhetorical ways that he creates community. And he's very consistent at returning to his values. You can see that a memo is not a story, right? This is not a story, but there are ways you can start imagining how, if it weren't a memo, if he was doing a TED Talk, he might talk about a particular student or faculty member that he was working with who had prepared for an agile, hybrid, and flexible modality for the fall, but it had to change. Okay? And again, he is so consistent. He has a mission statement that the role of engineering is to engineer a better world for all humanity. So my values align with that. That's why I like working for Dean Yortsos, because basically I'm a person from the humanities. But I like technology. So for me, my values align really well with Viterbi. So we're going to think about that in terms of helping you identify your own values and tell a story about your values. Okay. So a memo is not really a story. Does anybody want to unmute and give me an idea, another idea of how Dean Yortsos could tell this as a story? I could call on someone, like teachers do. Anybody?
I have something. So he's always talking about like building a better world, right? So maybe the story could be like something in Dean Yortso's life where they try to help build a better world for humanity through engineering.
Exactly. So it would be a specific instance, right? This is the difference between a memo and a story. And we use stories in college applications and in communications. When you look at IMRAD, it seems like there's not room for a story, but there is. Although that is not a genre of storytelling, and college applications are. Okay, and in some ways, talking about your research is too. Thank you, Rachel, for being so bold. Okay, so for instance, how could, this is just one example of like, you could use the values expressed by one of your target colleges as a way of talking about in your college application. Like maybe you might say something like, last summer as a part of the research team at Viterbi, I was, and then you could be, it doesn't really matter what your reaction is. It's almost like those Mad Libs where you can fill in the blank. I was surprised to read the dean's memos about Viterbi's mission. Sure, I knew I was helping to cure cancer in the research I did in Professor Graham's lab, but I was worried that being in STEM meant I had to turn my back on the humanities. Or I was happy. I was confused. It really doesn't matter. You don't always have to, you don't have to like always be rah rah. But this is just one way. If you understand the values of the college that you are applying to, you could use it. So I'm going to come back to this. But anything, like I was surprised to see that 239 scientists wrote a letter objecting to the World Health Organization statement that aerosols were not important in the transmission of COVID, right? So you can turn a memo, a news story, into a story. We're going to talk about this more. Okay, so this is one strategy for your dream school, is to launch from the values stated. Colleges, universities have very different values. I used to teach at Occidental College, which is a liberal arts college, quite different from University of Southern California, which is a research-oriented university. But if you can dig down to like the dean of a college's thought leadership or the provosts, rather than just going on the regular, most obvious values stated in the website, then that is showing that you understand the hierarchies of a university. You see the difference? Okay. So story is an engaging way to demonstrate your values so you don't have to say it, right? You don't have to say, I'm hardworking, if you can tell a story about it, all right? And this goes back, this is again, one of my slides from the first week. In a story, you are implicit rather than explicit, all right? You explicitly understand the values you want to communicate. You imply them rather than having to state them, okay? So a good college application tells them why you're great for them. I can't tell you, you know, having been a professor, I've probably looked at 2,000 applications for graduate school or college or grants. And so many people make the mistake of saying why going to USC is going to help you, or going, you know, whatever, how getting this grant is going to help you. In a shift though, you want to say why you coming to USC is so great, or whatever school. Again, you can go whatever school you want to. And as we've been really kind of hearing, you know, sure, a university wants your GPA and it wants your tuition too, but really, like, how did you get here? You got here because something you said was interesting about you in your personal statement. Yeah, if you had a GPA below 3.4, we didn't let you in, but that's because we don't want you to come in here and fail. But having said that, there were plenty of applicants who got a GPA over 3.4. What struck us? Okay, so let me try to tie it into some of the other things we've done, and I've got to speed up a little bit. TED Talks are great ways to understand stories. Okay, and let's look at the values that are implicit in Professor Elan's talk. Okay, what are the, unmute quickly. I don't have time for shy people. You shy people, unmute and talk to me. What are the values that you see here in Professor Elan?
Sharing and self-expression, like he wants everyone to talk about the experiences they're having and the troubles they have.
Exactly. So vulnerability, feelings, troubles are not to be ashamed. You're not to be ashamed. Excellent.
One important one was like the act of saying yes and, where like instead of just shutting someone's idea down, you can build upon it and like include them within the process.
Excellent. Thank you.
Embracing uncertainty.
Go ahead.
Oh, embracing uncertainty and just being proud of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And he calls that heroic, right? So heroism is important. I'm going to thank you. Thank you, you guys. And you can see, we also read his paper, one of his articles too, where he kind of nerded out with this Pareto thing, like, right? So you can really see the difference between a story. He said pretty much the same things in his article, if you remember that, but in his story, right? He talked about his vulnerabilities, his feelings. He's a risk taker. He didn't mind telling us he was depressed. He's looking for something heroic. Now, that might not be those, I'm not saying that those are the values you need to have. They're not. And so hopefully through these last 4 weeks, you've been sort of exploring the values that you see expressed in the lab by maybe the principal investigator, maybe your Shine mentor, maybe the other Shine mentor in the research group, maybe by your lab mate if you have a lab mate, maybe by looking at what Catalina and the center mentors and I value. And so it's a really good question right now. How much do you value knowing your path in advance? And how much do you value changing your assumptions? There's not a right answer. So I asked you in week 1, as you metaphorically walk through the doors of your research lab, what will you find? And I gave you the homework assignment to be able to suss out both the explicit and implicit goal of your PI's lab. I asked you to take notes. I know some of you started out taking notes. If you did, then there's something about writing too that really helps you understand values. It really makes a difference. So hopefully some of you have done this, or at least maybe you've been thinking along these lines, because this is a good basis for being able to articulate your own values. All right. Hopefully you've had the chance to think about your own self-expression in research. Okay. And I think that the iRobot panel this week was so clear in that they have different values than researchers, right? They're not trying to cure cancer. They're trying to have a reliable product that they know millions of people use. They want to have something that is fast and changes, and they deal with a lot of different people. It's quite different than what you're experiencing here this summer in Shine. Okay. So I gave you this homework. We will return to this today. Hopefully hopefully you have some foundation in all this stuff. I also asked you to ask your mentor what are the social benefits of research. And so I said by next week, be able to say in 1 or 2 sentences what the big picture of your research is. I didn't ask you to do it. I am going to ask you to do it next week. Okay, why are you here? Again, this is a slide from my first week too. This is from Lukeman, if you remember. He wants to pick undergraduates who have meaningful enthusiasm. Oh, look, there's a typo. Okay, interested is more important than interesting. You can see I gave you a lot of homework back then. I asked you to think about, I'm in Shine this summer to why. Here's how I find self-expression in research. This is what I bring to my research group, right? What do you bring to the college of your choice? Okay, so why are you here? You probably have different answers in week 4 than you did in week 1, and you will have different answers in week 7. Okay. This is why you're here. We chose you. Okay. So be willing to tell a story. A story is more vulnerable, right? We all know. So I'll use the word narrative as the same thing as story, but we know ever since humans are storytellers. Okay. So what you're doing in a story is you did something in Shine and you realized X, Y, Z. Okay. Now I'm not saying you are going to literally start your story this way, but there's cause and effect. Okay. So I would like you to be thinking of some specific tangible aspect of Shine that shows why you are interesting. So I'm sorry, Brandon, I'm gonna call you out because you came to office hours yesterday and I told you what I thought was a good Shine story for you. Would you unmute and tell us what I thought was your Shine story?
Okay, so yesterday I created a newer version of my program that previously ran a circuit in 3,100 seconds, which is about 51 minutes. But then I created the second version, which is it takes the same circuit and it's able to find the keys in 21 seconds instead of 3,100. So that's a 99% time reduction. And this shows that, that I have perseverance and that I'm willing to pursue whatever it takes to make my code more efficient and overall just better.
Thank you. And that's you being willing to unmute and let me put you on the spot shows that you have, that you're a good sport. So, and now Brandon's story could have different meanings, right? It could mean he's persistent. It could imply he's smart. Could imply he has no social life and is willing to do anything to improve his code. So,
That's
you know,
pretty
what,
true.
I'm sure I can't see Dr. Harold, but I'm sure she's on by now. And what she's going to do is going to show you, give you exercises to take the same story, the same shine detail, and tell different stories with it. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay. So I have asked everybody to create a LinkedIn profile. If you're under 16, you can't do it. But when you turn 16, you got something to look forward to. Oh my goodness. That makes me realize we have some birthdays coming up. I'm going to get back to you on those birthdays because there's a whole bunch coming up. Okay, if you haven't already made a LinkedIn profile, I really strongly suggest that you do. Now, a LinkedIn profile is not exactly a story. It's a different kind of story, right? But it is, you're crafting a representation of yourself. This is where you want to put your MATLAB certificate, your general lab safety certificate, if you got any other certificates, and we are going to have shine stories, and you're going to have an opportunity to record your shine story if you want. It's okay if you don't want to. The other thing is you could put your poster on your shine story. And because we can't have a poster session in person until COVID surge goes away, I'm going to have you record your presentation. So everybody, at the end of Shine, we always have a poster session, and then everybody talks about their research. It'll be virtual this year. We're going to figure out some way to have us come together and hear each other. But these are all things that you can post on your LinkedIn. And again, that's a different kind of story about yourself, but you can use a Shine story here. Remember, Brian Doherty from iRobot said, he talked about how you could record something or make a website. He didn't know that you could have your poster put on the USC Viterbi Shine website. So these are all ways that we are trying to help you get ready to go to the university of your choice. And Dr. Harold's going to talk a little bit more explicitly about that. I also want to say that quite a few of you signed up for the optional Workforce Ready training. I know that quite a few of you are finishing today or finished this week. The rest of you are finishing next week. You do get a certificate for this too. So put all this stuff on LinkedIn. And it could be a story. When I got my MATLAB certificate, I don't know. I also want to say that I so enjoyed the talent show. You guys are amazingly awesome. And the two guitar songs, Nico and Vrinda, they were totally storytellers. I was really moved by them. And Nico's, if you didn't go to the talent show, we're gonna force Nico to record his, because it's about being an engineer. Yeah, and then I think we're going to talk a little bit more about how to create a story. But I am done. Let me stop sharing my screen. I see Dr. Harold right there.
She's in, so you can make her a co-host.
Okay.
Good morning.
Hey.
Co-host now. Okay, so I can take it away. Yes, we're good. Okay, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's well. I'm so happy to be back with you again today. Let me go ahead and share my screen so I can get started.
Dr. Harold, I have one question.
Sure.
Rich asked me to text him 10 minutes before you need him, And so will you signal to me or
Yes, I can do that. Let me make a note to myself.
or just tell me around what slide?
Probably the last question slide, which is 19.
You got it.
So text Katie. Okay. I seem really organized, you guys. I'm kind of not, but here we are. You know, we all pretend. Crafting personas.
I set a good example for you of not being organized.
Organization. It's tough. Some people are better at it than others. Okay. All right. Yeah. So if you guys don't remember me, I am Dr. Harold. I'm a PhD in English. I have worked with Dr. Mills with Shine and the Shine team in the past, and Dr. Mills asked me to come back again this year to guide you through several sessions. We talked last time about annotated bibliographies. I have received all of yours, and I will get them back to you with individualized remarks on rubrics by Monday. So keep an eye out for that. It'll come directly to your email inbox. But today, I'm here to talk about storytelling, like Dr. Mills she did such a great intro to me, so thank you. So I'll go ahead and kind of get started there. So what I'm calling this workshop today is the Shine Story Workshop. So with Dr. Harold. So I like this image. It kind of encapsulates where you probably are right now. I know you're kind of at a midpoint in Shine, but everything happens so fast that thinking about where you start, where you end up, it's a really good time to kind of check in with yourself and your sort of journey here at Shine. So that's what today's workshop is about. So we're kind of circling the wagons, we're reflecting over your Shine Shine summer. It's time kind of to start reflecting even more about what you've gained here at Shine, what you've realized about research, the research process, what you realize about yourself taking part in that process. And you might start to think like, what is left undone now? Where will this Shine experience take you next? And so today we're going to kind of start thinking that sort of projection into your future. As you think about how you can use Shine, have it kind of as a tool in your back pocket to wield, whether it's on college applications or maybe in a job interview, that kind of thing. You can kind of refer to your Shine story to let people know a little bit more about who you are, what you value, what you've done. Okay, so you've seen this image before, probably multiple times now. This is the research cycle. We talked a lot last time during the annotated bibliography section about how you guys as members of a Shine lab are participating in an existing research question. Your annotated bibliography involved a literature review of your Shine lab and possible avenues for potential future iterations of that research, or maybe new directions. Eventually, I think in 3 weeks or so, you guys will be communicating your work at the poster session. But today we want to also think about what else might be different. The research cycle is a recursive, meaning circular kind of process. As you refine your research question through iterations, through different literature reviews, methods, results, communication, you kind of make things better and better on the journey towards more innovations, more research. But that kind of iterative, recursive, circular process is also probably, hopefully, going on with you yourself as you're figuring out who you are, what you value, all those good things. So one great thing about the research cycle is, in focusing specifically on research, is that it produces really tangible effects. So first off, some of you guys are in labs that are innovating in detection and treatment of diseases, different sort of products that can, bring about different futures, all that sort of stuff. You engineers kind of amaze me with all the things that you make possible in the world. Another thing you are kind of getting an insider view on is that the research process is also really lucrative, I guess, for lack of a better word. But you're seeing how research is a big kind of driver of job creation, like grants from, the natural, what is that called? Not NEH, NHS?
National Science. Foundation.
What is it?
NSF.
Yeah, that's it. NHF? No, NSF. NSF. I'm really bad with acronyms, if you can't tell. But yes, so there's big money involved. You know, your PIs, you know, I think nearly all of them have received these big grants. Some of you guys are participating in sort of technological, in fact, most of you, I think, are technological innovations that could lead to, you know, sort of new directions in business. People are making patents. There's a lot of money and economics kind of involved in research. And it's kind of, yeah, I remember that being kind of a big realization for me. I thought it was all just about, you know, the pursuit of knowledge, but there's some very practical components to kind of keep in mind as well. But that's not the focus of today. We're also thinking about how research and participating in the cycle is helping you learn about yourself. And that's kind of like a more, I guess you could say it's a softer skill. It's the stuff that I'm a little bit more interested in. I think myself as the humanities side of me is a little bit more interested in this part. And so that's what today is going to be all be about. So our goals today. So first off, we want the focus of the session is to adapt your Shine experience into what we're calling a Shine story. And eventually I'll introduce this assignment to you, but you'll have a draft of your Shine story due. The first deadline is next Thursday, I believe, at 10 a.m. So July 16th. And the rest of the session today will be talking a little bit about general tips for managing college admissions, the timeline involved. This can be a very anxiety-inducing subject, so we're kind of keeping it short and not trying so as to not to overwhelm you. But one of the great things about today is we have a special guest who I'll be introducing a little bit later, but his name is Rich Windish, and he'll talk to you about his story and how he kind of managed his college admissions process. And also he's helping other people do the same too. Okay, Okay, one little caveat here. You might be thinking, especially if you're like a rising sophomore, that this might seem kind of premature. You might be like, I'm not ready yet. But the sooner you start this stuff, at least start thinking about it, the more prepared you'll be when the time comes for you to actually start crafting these components that you can put into college applications. So I think that the little, what am I calling this? The sort of exercises we'll be doing today will be useful to you. That's sort of our goal. Okay, so why are we doing this? Why adapt your Shine story? So first I defined Shine story for you. Just a little brief narrative of what you did during Shine and what you gained from the experience. So why are we doing this? Very practical reasons. After you adapt your Shine story, you will have a literal like written script that you can use in general applications. We've adapted the assignment today to suit the UC personal insight questions that are around 350 words. But a lot of applications require some sort of like little snippet story about yourself. And so this will be, it'll give you kind of a tool in your arsenal as you engage with those sort of admission stuff. And also these are often part of job applications too when you, proceed further down your career path. So it'll be a good thing to have. And then also it's if you adapt your story in words, you'll have it kind of in your head a little bit better so that if you do land a job interview, a college interview, this will be a story that you just have on hand, a little script that you can kind of just delve into to illustrate to your committee a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you value, all that stuff. So other why questions. So why are we doing it in a story form? Like have we been talking so much about stories? And I know sometimes the sort of over TED Talkification of the world it can be a thing, but stories, like Dr. Mills was saying, they are the things that kind of make us human for kind of, I don't know, just that it has for millennia, I guess. We tend to want to share bits of ourselves through oral or written form. And here's some more reasons why we might turn to the story form. So first, it draws your audience in. A story is not just about you expressing yourself, it's about you adapting to an audience and letting them know you. So it's inherently relational. A story, the form of a story with a beginning and a middle and an end, it has this basic structure that it's really nice because it highlights growth. So like I started here, here's where I was kind of in the middle of things, maybe piecing things together, maybe confusing, whatever it is in the middle, the conflict part of the story, and then the resolution, the end, where you end up. So that structure just inherently has sort of a linear kind of direction to it, which is great for a college application because you're showing that you're growing. Other reasons, a story will center yourself as the protagonist. And I think that's really important for you to kind of step forward and kind of own, who you are and what's important to you. So kind of leading with I statements is really important especially in the college admissions process, because you do want to stand out. And then also narratives help connect, this is going to sound kind of abstract, I guess, but they help connect concrete things to abstract things. So it's kind of like a thread going between those things. So today we'll be talking about how a narrative can help you connect the what you did during Shine with the more abstract and kind of harder to talk about what it means. Okay, is that all I wanted to do? Story form, yes. Okay, so today's my talk today is adapted in large part from the college essay guy. I really like that guy. His name is, what is it? Ethan Sawyer, I believe, or just the college essay guy, CEG. So much of it's adapted from him, but also from the materials that Dr. Mills shared as well. The TED Talk by Uri Alan, and then Dean Yortzo's memo that you guys read. But I created this little image here to think through how you can connect these concrete things, the object or image in the college essay guy's terminology, to the more abstract things, the values or traits that you want to highlight, and then how those all go together to create, or to, not to create a narrative, but they work together through the process of narrativizing your progress, your values, that sort of thing. Okay. So I asked you to watch 2 YouTube videos generated by the college essay guy. So hopefully you were able to do that. I'll be referring to those videos a little bit as we kind of go along here. But here are the values, or here's a screenshot of some of the values that the college essay guy talks about. I have a PDF I can share with you and maybe at the end of things. It's also, we've made all this available on the Shine website, so I'll guide you through that in a second. So here, sometimes it's hard to think of values, and so it's helpful to have a list like this. What are the things that you value? Career, fame, nutrition, these sorts of things. So that's a good place to start thinking about the abstract kind of things that are animating you as a person. But there's other places to find values too. You might, it's a tip that's a bit strategic, but especially if you're starting to think about colleges and where you want to go for your university years, research your college's of choice's mission statement. In a mission statement, it's usually it's a lot longer than this. I just screenshotted the first paragraph, but all colleges tend to have these. It kind of is a statement of their own values. And so if you go in, look at the mission statement, see the sorts of things that they're highlighting. Our mission is accomplished, so they're into teaching, research. This is the USC mission statement, by the way. Artistic creation, professional practice, selected forms of public service. These are the sort of things that USC is leading with. It's the values that they're claiming as a public institution. I guess it's a private institution, but the public facing branch of the institution, these are the values. And so if you kind of can also speak to some of those values, you're demonstrating kind of on a latent level that you are a good fit for that college. So this is kind of an interesting, potentially strategic method here. This is kind of more of a fun slide, I guess, but Rich Windish suggested looking into the traits of an ideal Trojan. These are the traits that are literally carved into the Tommy Trojan statue at USC. And they kind of seem a little bit more old-fashioned, but I think you could still probably adapt some of these in terms of your Shine story. Faithful, scholarly, certainly, skillful, courageous. Courageous, we probably would say more, I would put like vulnerability under courage, bravery, and that kind of thing, and ambition. Okay, so kind of cute. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so, okay, we're just gonna start to transition towards the reflection part of the workshop. So go ahead and I guess X out of the PowerPoint full screen. You might have done that already, but take out some kind of blank document. A Word document's fine, just blank, or a Google Docs is cool. Or, you know, if you're into handwriting stuff, that's fine too, just a blank sheet of paper. But go ahead and take it out and reflect on some of the values or traits that you believe are animating your Shine story right now. So here's the directions. Take a moment, reflect on your Shine experience so far. So what values or traits come to mind? So you could spend some time trying to answer that. Why are these values or traits meaningful to you? It's kind of a harder question. So open up some sort of blank document and take down some notes. And at this stage, don't censor yourself at all. Don't even like backspace stuff unless you find that you're really, your fingers are off the tracks or whatever. But don't worry about spelling or grammar or anything. Just kind of start jotting some stuff down. It doesn't matter if it makes sense yet. You're in the brainstorming and reflection stage, and you shouldn't. You should cultivate that. You know, don't puncture it with your inner critic or anything like that. We're not worried about audience yet, so I'll be quiet for about 3 minutes while you start taking some of these notes. Okay, I'm gonna start talking again. So sorry if you're not really ready to keep going, but don't worry, you'll have more time to reflect in just a second. So I know you want more time to reflect. Okay, so you already have kind of like some ideas together about your Shine story. Here's another sort of prompt for reflection. So the college essay guy has in his essence object video, he talks about the importance of what he calls an essence object, something that you connect with or associate with something that's important to you. So here, this is kind of, we're still in the brainstorming stage, but as we start thinking about objects and images, you actually are starting to ground some of the abstractions into concrete things. And this is starting to think about your audience. So sometimes when you're up in the air thinking about abstractions like truth and justice, that kind of thing, it's helpful to have something concrete in reality to ground everything so that your reader can have something to hold on to. So challenge yourself here to think of some kind of object or image. Could be anything really. Maybe it's just a computer screen or something, or like a little note that you tap to your monitor that tells you, whatever things that you should keep in mind. Something that can help, something concrete. And in your notes here, so you're still in the brainstorming stage, explain why this object and your Shine values or experience are connected in your mind. Okay, so I'll give you maybe 2 minutes this time. Again, we're recording this so you can come back to this at any moment that you want to do some more brainstorming.
I'm currently reading my PIQ for when I did Shine. It's interesting how I've improved my writing so much.
That's funny. Oops. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna chime back in again. Just to kind of go back a little bit to the Shine Story assignment. So what we have in mind is for you to we want you to do the assignment because it's a really good exercise to start shaping your Shine experience so that it's legible or understandable to an outsider, someone who doesn't really know about Shine, doesn't really know what you've been doing for these 7 weeks. And so those sorts of people are going to be folks like admissions committees, maybe an interviewer as you're going up for like a future job or something. Maybe it's going to be your grandparents, whatever. So yeah, we're trying to especially keep in mind a reader who doesn't have any idea what Shine is. And so you have to kind of explain not only what you did for these 7 weeks over the summer, what Shine is, what the program is, but also how it affected you as an individual human. So we're keeping in mind people like admissions committees primarily. And so that's why we're crafting this around the UC system's personal insight questions. So you'll have a document that links you directly to this. You could also just Google it. But this is a really wonderful page. Actually, they have a really cute video where deans and provosts and stuff talk to you about their personal insight questions. Okay, so we're pivoting towards thinking about your reader now, not only thinking about expressing yourself and reflecting on your own story, but communicating that to an outsider. Telling a story is really important for you personally, but it's also how you make yourself known. Again, at this stage, we're still sort of in the brainstorming, kind of note-taking stage, so don't censor yourself. You might use these notes that you generate in a second, you might not. But I would just suggest that you do take this seriously, because the more you do now, the easier the Shine Story assignment will be later. So just for practical purposes, try your best to kind of take this time to do some writing and note-taking and stuff. Okay, so with the personal insight questions in mind from the UC system, there's 8 of them. The reason why we picked these is knowing that a lot of Shine students will end up applying to a UC school. They're good schools, so why not? And another reason we're picking them is their personal insight questions are pretty generic, and they'll be very similar to any sorts of questions like these in other applications. So let's see, as you're applying to different colleges, if you have these sort of generic kind of story questions, you can reuse them for multiple applications. So like work smarter, not harder is the sort of goal here. Okay, so over the next couple slides, I have, oh wait, no, I'm not there yet. Okay, so let me chill for a second. Okay, so as we're thinking about shaping your Shine Story for various audiences, here's the stuff that your audience will have in mind. So this is going to be a little bit different from what you would have in mind in sharing your story, So, okay, this is what audiences want to know. Okay, so what admissions committees want to know? They want to know some details. How much time you spent doing this thing? Because that shows like your level of commitment and, your level of commitment. What were your responsibilities and accomplishments during this experience? They want to know the impact you made. So what were some of the tangible results, or some of the less tangible results, the more abstract kind of learning about yourself impact? The qualities you demonstrated while you spent all this time doing Shine. And they want to know what you learned, how you grew. Okay, so I'll be sharing this in a kind of document form for you. In fact, let's see.
Do you want me to put the link in the chat to the?
Yeah, I'm so bad at Zoom, you guys.
Okay.
I'm trying to pretend like I'm not, but okay. I'll just stop the share right now, and I will copy paste this into your chat box so that you guys can have it at your leisure as you think about these things that we're asking you to do. So I'll go ahead and put it in the chat to everybody. So here are the sort of what admissions committees want to know. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Okay. All right, so hopefully you have all that stuff. Is that true? Do you guys have it in the chat? Okay, lovely. Okay, so think about communicating these 5 things and share your Shine Story as a response to, this is the UC question 6. So their question is, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and or outside of the classroom. So this should be kind of one-to-one for your Shine experience. You guys are pursuing an academic subject that interests you, right? So take a good, I don't know, 2-3 minutes here, I guess, too. Just jot some notes down. You don't have to like start crafting yet, but one thing to think through is what sort of values are in play when you're thinking about how Shine relates to academic subjects that inspire you. What values are in play when you think about how you have furthered this interest? Okay. Okay, that's the question we just did. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stop you a little bit there. You'll have more time to do this for the assignment if this is the question that you choose to do. Spoiler alert. Okay, how about this question though? So this is the UC question number 2. You might not ordinarily connect this with Shine, but engineers are like super creative people. Okay, so I'll read the question. Every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Those are some values, right? Okay. Describe how you express your creative side. So take some time and think through how your Shine experience can speak to values related to your creativity. You might not have ordinarily thought about this, like with, was it Brandon's story? You know, he's talked about his perseverance. I would be kind of interested in learning how his coding speaks to his creative side too. Kind of interesting. Okay, so I'll give you another 2 minutes to kind of brainstorm how you might answer this question with your Shine story. Okay. One other thought I had about this creativity question is, you know, during the pandemic, everyone has had to become a lot more creative about how they've made things work. So it'd be something to think about. Okay. Okay, last one for today, at least. This is question 1 for the UC's thing, their personal insight questions. Okay, I did this one because sometimes people are hesitant to think of themselves as leaders. But okay, so describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. I think engineers are especially poised to answer a question like this because engineering is such a connection between individual leadership and autonomy and those sorts of things, and collaboration and teamwork. So you're in a good position to kind of speak to that balance in a question like this. So take some time, think about the values that are in play with your leadership as you've experienced it during Shine, during a pandemic. So another 2 minutes here. Okay, guys, great work. Cool. So I am going to now just transition to talking about the Shine Story assignment. We've been talking about it a lot already, but here's our like concrete expectations of you. So you'll get a document with all this stuff printed out too for your reference. But so first we'd like you to put your first and last name and email address at the top of the document. That'll just help me as I'm making comments on your Shine Story, so I can send it directly to you. Okay, so then your first task really is to choose one of the UC questions. So there's 8 of them. Number 8 is the generic one that's just like, tell us something you want us to know about yourself. So you could do that one. You could do the leadership one. You have notes on 3 of them now. So feel free to choose any of those or one that you haven't done yet. But let me know which question you're responding to, because I can tailor my commentary on your piece to how well you've answered the question through your story. And then after you've chosen your story, after you've chosen your question, adapt your Shine Story to answer that question. And remember that their cutoff is 350 words. So use some sort of tracker tool to help you keep under that, especially since things are online now. You really do have to stick to the any kind of like word limit, because these text boxes, probably an engineer did this, they limit you to a certain number of characters or words or whatever. So make sure you're following those. And Dr. Mills reminded me to encourage you to try to get up to 350 words. You know, it is possible to do this Shine Story thing in a much truncated version, and you might have to do that for some applications. Maybe their cutoff is 200 words. But if you've been given 350 words, take full advantage of that. You know, think of more things to say in your Shine experience. So yeah. So try to get as close to 350 words. If you can get at 350, that's always such a cool feeling. You're just like right at the perfect amount. And you'll have a document that helps you find this link and everything to upload your Shine Story. But here I'll talk about the due dates. So we want you to have your first draft of your Shine Story, this 350 word document responding to a particular question, submitted by 10 a.m. Next Thursday, July 16th. What I'll do after I receive those is I'll spend the next few days commenting on your draft. I'm gonna do it through video. Like I'll have like personalized videos that I'll send directly to you in your inbox. And then from there, you'll generate, working with my commentary, or, commentary is always sort of suggestive or whatever. I will tailor it in, in my best efforts to make your story, to highlight what's already great about your story and just kind of push it further, or maybe come up with like new things you might potentially say. And so if you want to incorporate some of that feedback, draft 2 is due the following, I think this is a Tuesday, July 21st by 5 p.m.
Yep, Tuesday.
Tuesday? Perfect, thank you. Oh man, dates. Okay. So, let's see. Okay, so now is oh wait, let me go back. Are there any questions? Let me do that. Any questions about this assignment?
And I had asked Ashley if she could just talk a little bit. She's the one that suggested having us respond to the UC assignment so that you have something ready to be done. And she's just one example. We hear it over and over again, how people use their Shine experience to talk during their interviews or something like that. So I'm putting Ashley on the spot to talk about this.
Okay. For my PIQ, I answered number 4. I'll type it in the chat. It was describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or work to overcome an educational barrier you have faced, which is different than what we're going for here, but I could have easily written any of the other ones that Dr. Harold mentioned. So my notes, oh God, keep in mind that I was younger. So these are my notes. I tried to go for I described the program at first, and I mentioned that I got in through a scholarship because I couldn't afford it, and then I listed the programs that I learned, and I wanted to list them because just saying that I learned programs that were meant for master's students seemed like I said it, but if I listed them, I wish I would have listed less though. Then it would have been, I think, given me more space to talk about other things. And then I did talk about the connections I made, because Shine did give me really good connections with my lab, with other students, and then of course the K-12 STEM Center. I did talk about how I had never been exposed to an environment like Shine before. And then I talked about how Shine led to my passion, which was research, and then how I plan to have a future in research. So it was like a whole story in 350 words. But everything came together like it was meant to be. So it was like a linear story, and it had like a beginning and then an end, which was me like doing a call for action for myself. So there was that. And then in interviews, Shine was my favorite thing to talk about during interviews, because I felt like interviews weren't really that important other than to figure out that you're a nice person and like to make sure that everything that you're stating on paper is true. And so I think whenever I talked about Shine, like my face lit up and I was like, oh, I'm so excited about my project that I did. Let me tell you about it. Even if they weren't STEM majors, like I got a lot of art people from Harvard and MIT for some reason. But yeah, so that they could relate to me because my project was sort of humanities, because it was socially assisted robotics. And so they understood my project because I was able to say it in English thanks to Shine. Yeah, so it was my favorite part of interviews. That's all I have to say.
That's so great. Oh, I love to hear it. And you know, just as you hear Ashley talk, you do like as your audience, like you light up too. You know, that's kind of the wonderful thing about sharing something about yourself. You know, you do let other people in, and then they get to experience like a little bit about who you are. You know, and another thing I really liked about what you said, Ashley, is the thing about interviews. No one likes them. They make you super duper nervous. But if you have this sort of like, it's not necessarily a script, like you don't want to sound like you memorize something, but if you do have this sort of reflection kind of thing that you can draw upon, it's a nice thing to have in your pocket. You know, if someone asks you a question, you can illustrate your answer with an example like Shine. And it just really, when you are in an interview context and you can make it your answer like that, you just know that you kind of like landed it. You're like, oh yes, you know, they get me, you know, I feel seen. You know, I've not only just told them who I am, but I've kind of showed it as well.
It also helps if you're proud of what you did. So take advantage of the research that you're doing and be proud of it and be passionate about it. Because then when you talk about it, like it just comes out so much more genuine and it's so much easier to talk about.
Nice, that's great. And it gets easier and easier to talk about it the more you kind of tap into these values and traits that you know, the more you thinking that you do about them. Let's see, I think maybe before we turn to Rich, who's got other like great stories, his own story, I wanted to share with you the resources that we made available through, where is it? Oh my gosh. Okay, so we'll definitely share this with you in a way that is better. Oh my God. Okay, stop doing that. Dang. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, hold on. I can find this. Hold on. We can do this. We can do this. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here we go. I'm just going to copy paste this. Oh, can I? Dang. Sorry. We're not ready for Rich yet. Okay, hold on. Let me do it here. Okay. So the lovely Shine team has put together these resources for you. So you're probably very familiar with the Google Drive by now, but just so you know, we've really beefed up this little subfolder. So it's within Shine 20 readings. It's called Shine Stories College App in parentheses. So click on that. Here you can find. Oh,
I can't view. All I see is your doc.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me stop share. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm just gonna share my desktop. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's within Shine 20 readings. It's called Shine Stories in parentheses College App. Click that. If you forget about any of the assignments kind of stuff with having to do with the Shine Stories, we've made all that available to you. Here's a link to the UC questions. Here's the PowerPoint I just went through with y'all. Here's just a, you know, kind of a doc about, it includes all those tips for sharing your Shine story, and then just sort of a prompt about the assignment and all the details of that. Great. but
And I'm going to jump in and say,
do it.
I'm going to ask, why are we having you do it twice? And
Oh,
there's two reasons. One is you should always really work on crafting these stories. You shouldn't just sit down and write. William P., you don't want to write this half an hour before you post it. Just making fun of you because you're good at doing things at the last minute. You really want to craft these things. And so we are going to give you a chance to revise it. If you don't want to revise it, you can answer a second question on the second time you do it, and then you'll get feedback on 2 different questions. And one thing I do want to say is when you come to writing your college personal statement and these littler questions, you're going to get a lot of advice. You are going to get too much advice, and you're not going to know who to listen to. First of all, your parents are going to have a lot of opinions. And they may not be the best ones to listen to. So in the end, you have to go with your gut because you're going to get conflicting advice. And so, like, I remember when my niece was applying to college, she wrote her essay about her parents' divorce. She had it all written, ready to go, how tragic the divorce was and how it made her find theater as her home. And then she went to a workshop and they said, every kid's parents are divorced. Don't write about your parents' divorce. So, you know, in the end, though, I think she went with that story because it really did talk about why she found a family in the theater, and she was an acting major at NYU, so it worked. Now she's a middle school drama teacher. So you're going to get conflicting input, and don't worry about it. Okay, I'm done.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Oh, go for it.
I would say also, remember that Katie or Dr. Mills has office hours, so please take advantage of that. I know sometimes you get kind of writer's block and it helps to talk to someone else, so please take advantage of that time.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mills and Catalina. The thing about the revision is so right. Thank you, Dr. Mills, about that. You can be in a position where you feel like everything is perfect, but like give it a couple days and return to that draft. I bet you'll find new things to kind of edit. Writing, as a writing instructor, this is the thing we get drilled over and over to say. Writing is recursive. It's this process that kind of goes over and over and over again. You're kind of never really done. Like even some of the Pulitzer Prize winner people, they'll tell you that they're always revising. So it's a good exercise to get started in. And then the other thing I was going to say about Dr. Mills's advice is I mentioned this in let me show you. So Shine Story Resources. Okay. Within the college app materials section of this drive, I made here it is, the Shine Guide to Free Tips or whatever. This is a video that I did. Man, it's just me talking for like 30 minutes. So bless you for listening to it. But one of the things I mentioned in there about your personal statement is, I mentioned this actually last year in Shine. A student had a question about, like, I'm really worried about being cliche. You know, I've gotten this advice that admission committees want to read something that they've never read before. And I would just kind of advise or suggest that you kind of shift your mindset a little bit. A lot of college mission statements sound kind of similar. You know, they're interested in people and society and the universal good of, working together, research, knowledge, truth, these sorts of things. It's not helpful to think of yourself as a cliche. It may be true that your parents got divorced just like everybody's parents, or it may be true that, I don't know, that's less cliche. So the sort of analogy that I used last year was, it's kind of like falling in love. If you talk to anybody about their falling in love story, it kind of starts to get into sort of cliche territory, but what makes the story interesting is how the person tells it. And so think of that kind of as you are crafting these stories. It's not necessarily so much about the content even, so much as how you are expressing yourself and what that content means to you. But just to kind of talk a little bit more, so I made this video. I would just encourage you to watch that, and I really guide through all of the free resources that we've made available to you guys here at Shine. I draw a lot on the college essay dude, or sorry, the college essay guy. He's probably trademarked that, so I should get it right. But here's like some advice for asking for letters of rec, advice on when to do it, how to go about it, you know, how to follow up with professors and teachers and stuff like that. There's a little guide to free resources. There's a little bit more about personal statement help and application managers. So like a Google Sheet, how to create a great college list. Okay, so with that, I want to turn things over to our special guest. Current slide. Rich Windisch. Okay, so I'll introduce him first. So Rich Windisch is a USC alumnus. He, in 2018, gosh, I'm old. Okay, 2018, he got a BS in geodesign here at USC. And then he stayed around to get his master's in geographic information science and technology in 2019. Now, currently, he holds the job title of Geographic Information Systems Specialist for the City of Los Angeles. So I'd like to turn things over. I'll stop sharing and turn things over to Rich, if he's here.
Yep.
Lovely, okay. Hi, Rich.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich. Some background is, you heard my educational story. In another word, what I do is I'm a cartographer and data analyst for the City of Los Angeles. Early on, when I was applying to colleges, I wanted to become a civil engineer because my main goal was, I want to help cities be better. And after 1 year in civil engineering at USC, I decided that I want to still make cities better, but not through civil engineering. So that's just a side note for changing your major in college. Totally safe. A lot of people have done it. It's not as life-ending as some people think it is. But then, so I found out this new major that was extremely interdisciplinary, and I really liked it because it combined STEM with all the mapping, with also this extremely human component. And so I ended up just staying in the program and loving it a lot. I'm here because I have been helping high schoolers with their college essay applications for probably the past 5 years. I think it's important to get a lot of feedback from a variety of people, as Katie and Megan were mentioning, but also especially from those who are in STEM, if you're looking going into that field. And there's a certain way you can talk about scientific communication. And so part of this and what makes Shine so special is they focus on that scientific communication. You guys are going to be learning a lot about writing, but then also that writing extends to the poster projects, to how you talk about what you're doing in Shine, to what will become your college admission essays, as well as just the Shine story. So as they were talking about, there are so many ways to go about it, but the most important thing is telling the experience from your point of view. And this kind of carries over into those details that you might not think are the most interesting part of your story, but they're what make your story uniquely yours. And so while it could be a cliche for the story you're talking about, when you put those details in, it really connects the admissions counselor or guidance, whoever is reading it, to see more who you are as a person. And then the second part that I cannot stress this enough, when I've been working on college admission help in the past, I would always start in July, and the students would almost get angry at me for, why is this so early? But those same essays that we worked on in July, we were still workshopping them in November to get them in before the December 1st deadline for USC. So writing is such an iterative process, and you really, if you hit writer's block, stop it, work on a different essay, come back to it a few days later, you are gonna have new insight. Another thing is that I made a couple tools and resources for you guys. One of them is kind of this master Excel sheet, and you guys can fill this out as you go along the way with your college applications. This is more for seniors, but for the undergrad, for those below that, it's just great to kind of get a head start at looking into what the process will be like. But so with this spreadsheet, it just helps you track everything and kind of compare yourself along the lines for the schools, and then it gets all the information in one centralized place. So once you're gathering all that information for the schools that you want to apply to, it's important to just take a holistic step back and look at everything and kind of rank your priorities, choices, deadlines, all of that. And it just helps you keep an organized look at the entire process. The other thing that I made was kind of an overall, here are so many different ways of applying to college, and here are the essays that are on each one. And some of those have tips and tricks, but I would suggest looking at that. And then I was talking to about kind of word vomit, which is a weird way to look at things. But if you ever have writer's block and are just looking at, okay, here are these 4 essay options that I have for looking at college, or even here are these options I have for the Shine story, everything just kind of carries over. Just kind of vomit onto the page. It's a horrible analogy, but it works so well because you're just getting all the words out on there. And then afterwards, like I said, take a step back and then look at it again through new perspective. Find those ideas that stuck when you were just kind of writing unfiltered, and then you can develop those into more of an idea that is potentially an essay that will get you right into college. I was talking about my essays when I wrote, and after looking at what the college essay guy was talking about, he talked about his essence objects. And this really extends to how those things that are very small and minute, and they might be special to you, but you have an internal dialogue of, oh, you know, no one else is going to care about this. Totally wrong. People will care about it. And so I was talking about how for my college essay, I believe this was for the Common App, and it talk about where you come from, your home, and things like that. And at the time, I had just moved, and I was kind of not liking the house that I moved into as much because I hate change and it was very foreign to me. But I thought, okay, what parts of my house do I like? What have I done? And I remembered that I started making a small succulent garden in the backyard. And like this became my little portion of the house where I got to, it was mine. And I made it what it is. I turned it more into a home. So I talked about that succulent garden, that small, tiny experience, small part of the backyard. And it worked. I got into colleges. So that's just like a small tidbit for how you can approach the entire college application process. Megan, do you have anything else you want me to kind of go into, or?
No, I think that was really, really great, but maybe we could open it up for questions. I don't know, Katie, what do you think? Dr. Mills?
I think it's always good to open up for questions. If there's ever anything that's unusual about you, like I love the succulent garden idea. I remember, I'll never forget the story of one of the students who came to Shine. Like I can remember some of your stories, and I won't put you on the spot. But if you wrote about eating a burrito, I remember that. A couple years ago, maybe last year, no, 2 years ago, somebody who was in love with aerospace, and he got a pilot's license when he was so young. He had to take his pilot's license. He couldn't sit in the cockpit. He was so young, he had to stand up. I mean, so, you know, it's these things that story doesn't tell me whether or not he's actually good at fluid dynamics, but it tells me that his passion for aerospace was so big. Now, maybe you didn't have that opportunity to become a pilot at age 9 or something like that. But like I think about Vrinda's story about her father. I was so moved by her song that she sang, and she had those essence objects of him holding her and the things. So let's all of us grown-ups be quiet for a while and see if anybody has any questions, or if they want to toss an idea out there. Somehow I knew that would not generate conversation.
Just another point that Megan and I made when we were on a Zoom call the other day, it was how Another way to just approach writing for whether it's Shine Story or college applications, in my experience, is your test scores are the quantitative part of you. Those numbers, you can't really change them. Well, you can, but in the application process, once the numbers are in, they're just numbers. They're just that, they stay right there. Your college application, the writing portion, is the qualitative part. So that's where you really get to put all of your input and allow the college admissions reader to then have a better sense of who you are beyond test scores. And it's also another chance for you to explain some parts. They always have that, is there anything else we should know? If there is something that test scores or the essays don't talk about, or whether you struggled in a certain class, but then you got it from a B to an A or even lower to higher, it doesn't matter. Those portions, every portion where you write something has to be extremely thoughtful. And that thoughtfulness does not just come in a single draft. Never a single draft. It's always going to be so many drafts. Can't stress that enough.
So this is where you can also just circle back to the kinds of values that you've been observing in your research labs. Maybe you talked to your mentor or your center mentors about this 4 weeks ago, and you haven't really thought about it for the last 3 weeks, but now you have an opportunity to ask them about it again. Think about it for you. Why do you have to be so personal? Why do you have to talk about your values? Because you really do not want to be in a university whose values you don't share. Like if you like, being around top scholars and a lot of PhD students, then it's going to be better for you to go to a school like USC compared to Occidental College, for instance. Where if you like really interesting people and having long conversations and stuff after, and living on campus with a bunch of people, then Occidental College is a good college for you. It's there's no right way, but you like if you're trying to decide between MIT and Stanford as a CS major, which is what Professor Materek's daughter had to choose, there's such radically different values in those two schools. So next week, we are going to meet with Becky Beater, who is an admissions officer for Viterbi School of Engineering. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how different colleges have different values, how different majors, like just what Rich said, that he thought civil engineering would be it, but he figured out that GIS.
Yes, geodesign.
Geodesign. Combine some of that. The same major, civil engineering major at USC might be quite different than at MIT or Stanford or Columbia or something like that. So as you're trying to identify your target schools, it does do you some good to drill down and start looking at the different GE courses and how much room that you have for taking other things. Remember, the panelists at iRobot talked about that a lot too, or a little bit too. Okay.
If you're feeling, can I add something to that, Dr. Mills? If you're feeling like overwhelmed by all this stuff, like, oh gosh, where do I start? I would really encourage you to watch that video I made and stick with the college essay guy. He has a lot of really great tools to get you started on this. Some of them are as simple as like personality tests that are linked up to particular colleges. So like if you don't even know where to start, that's a great place to start. Figuring out what you value and what kind of schools might be a good fit for that value. So I would start there.
And it's important to be overwhelmed now and instead of in November or September, those later months. The earlier you get over being overwhelmed, the better the entire process will be for you.
It's easy for us to tell you not to be overwhelmed, and because we got to college, but we know it's overwhelming. This is another way that having a community is going to help you. I mean, you might get together and talk about this yourselves. We used to let you write your college statement, your personal statement. And then we just found it's too vulnerable. But these little 350 word things, if you can do that, then then you can go up to a college personal statement, but you might let each other read each other's ones, or you might help each other. Like you might say to Brandon, well, I want to think about how you could turn that story into something about your creativity rather than your perseverance. So, you know, peer review, or just sort of bouncing ideas off together, or even you could all be on the same Zoom for half an hour and not talk to each other, but you're just writing, so that you're in a community of writers.
That's a great tip. You might, one thing I was thinking, I know we're just adding more advice and more advice, but one thing I was thinking about the values exercise and connecting it to the Shine Stories thing you might do is, if you're having trouble thinking of your own values, ask a friend what they think of you. Sometimes that can be a kind of a trick to get outside of your own perspective, particularly if you have like an inner self critic who's kind of mean. You know, tell that critic to shut up and ask a friend, and then you can start to kind of cultivate thinking of being kind of a friend to yourself. You know, like how would you talk about a friend and their values, and then kind of train that on yourself as well a little bit too. That's the sort of tip from someone who does have kind of a mean critic. Yeah, so.
Anybody who has a PhD has a mean critic inside.
It's very unhelpful, especially when you're writing, especially in the brainstorming moments when you're just trying to generate ideas. Don't criticize yourself. I have friends who will take out a Word document and then turn their text white so they can't even see what they're writing. They just keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. I mean, you can see if you've made like spelling mistakes, like if you're off track with the little squiggles underneath. But you can keep doing that, and then when you're ready, then you can turn it black again so you can actually read what you've written. But yeah, tell that inner critic to be quiet. They're not helpful.
All right, we can just keep babbling on with advice, but there's no shortcuts to just doing it, and to just the video that Megan made also talks about strategies for pacing yourself. And I will tell you that this is something that I see a big difference in Shine between the students who go to a private school, who get a lot of really good tips on how to apply to colleges, and the kids who don't go to private schools. That there's a huge difference in the private school kids tend to start like in August and September, telling their teachers they need the letters of recommendation, and starting to iterate different versions of their statement. Whereas the kids who don't have the advantage of those private school tips tend to really start asking for letters of recommendation November, December. So save yourself. You don't have to go to private school. Just start asking for those letters of recommendation in August, September. Okay, we're babbling on. Rich, I want to thank you for taking time for playing hooky at work, and being caring enough to do this. And I do know that you developed this passion for helping people when you were an undergraduate here, and you worked in Troy Camp, which was another K-12 STEM outreach.
Yes, I think that it's just higher education has given me so many opportunities, and if I can let other people have more opportunities, and whether that's helping with College App, trying to work something out where I can do more with that, I'm happy to do it. So
thank you so much. And we're not done with Rich. He will help with Megan and giving some feedback and advice. Are there any last questions, comments? Not surprised that there's quiet. Okay, I have some announcements. So first of all, I want to really thank Jesse, Rachel, Darwin, and William P. for doing Instagram stories this week. I hope that you all had a chance to look at them. We are looking for more Instagram stories. You have Monday to upload the basics of it. We will put them onto our Instagram, and they will stay there. So I realize that Instagram story is slightly different than the kind of stories we're talking about, but in some ways it is all the same thing. You're presenting, you're using something tangible, whether it's William used his lab notebook, it's something tangible that is expressing, it's implicitly telling people something about yourself. So please submit some more. You can resubmit if you want. Thank you to everybody who participated in the talent show, that willingness to share a different side of yourself. I really feel closer to the people that I got to see. And let's see, so next week, I do have office hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, as you know. There's many of you that I've never seen, like Tyler, Coco, there's more of you. Eric, I don't think I've really talked to you. So you guys, my first half an hour, I have you could sign up for a 5-minute appointment with me. We could get to know each other a little bit. And then we have group chat from 1:30 to 2. So come, let me see you. Tuesday at 2 next week, we have the admissions talk. Friday, we have Kathalina's husband come and talk about his journey, both in research and in entrepreneurship. We might also get Professor Zabaleta in then too. I am just finalizing plans for the poster session and how we're going to end. So I've been kind of waiting to see how this resurge is going, and it's not going great. So we're gonna go more virtual, keep our health, and then when it's safe, we're gonna come back to campus, all of us, and we're gonna finally see each other face to face. But it's not gonna be on July 31st. So I will share all of that with you later today, or maybe even over the weekend, so that you can start planning. And can you all help me in thanking both Rich and Dr. Harold for taking their time to share their resources with us. I'm always thankful to the center mentors who are really doing such a fabulous job. Kathalina, couldn't do it without you. So this is it. Birthdays. Kathalina.
Did you want me to? Okay.
Yeah, you've got it handy.
Let me see.
Fortunately, we haven't missed anybody's birthdays, but we do have some.
Okay, so this week, Jacob has his birthday this coming week on the 14th. Jesse is on the 15th. Ella's birthday is on the 17th, and Anthony's is on the 18th. That's so many birthdays, so make sure you shout out on those days.
Yeah, and First Gens, you have a meeting today at 4 o'clock. All right. Okay. Have a good Friday.